Okay, all right. So basically, today we'll study scheduling, round robin, priority scheduling, and multi-level queue scheduling. All right. So last lecture we have studied. We started with program behavior, and we have seen different programs are of different types, different nature. Some are more compute intensive, while others are more IO bound. And we have also seen this as we have seen that there is a tremendous progress because of Moore's law, etc. In computing technology, right? Processors are becoming faster and more powerful. So most of the jobs today are more IO centric because compute whatever competition is there, that's get done very fast, and then IO is comparatively slow because for example, there is system call, and system call translates into, for example, into file reading. The whole thing is very slow because the reading from disk itself is a slow process, right? So those IO kind of jobs take now proportionately more time. So now it means that now more processes can run concurrently. Okay, while a process is doing IO, other process can be allocated to the CPU. Okay, all right. Then we have looked at scheduling. Scheduling essentially means that what order jobs are given chance to run on a CPU. Okay, what is the order? And I mean, it should, then it depends on whether the job, when job is scheduled or starts running on CPU, should we allow it to run to the end, or should we preempt it or remove it from CPU and other job can run? Okay, the first type is called non-preemptive, where job is allowed to complete. And even now there are many computers that do this kind of stuff depending on the application need. Okay, but most of the computers that we use today, okay, they are interactive in nature, like your mobile phone. It cannot afford to have non-preemptive scheduling. It has got to have preemptive scheduling, but there are hundreds of processes that are running and each one wants attention. For example, while you are browsing a phone, a website on your mobile phone, a phone call can come. So processor has to then give attention to phone call. Okay, and so on, right? So preemptive scheduling is required today in most of the devices. Okay, all right. So these two we have looked at it, and then we have seen that earlier system where batch type, I mean, where you submit jobs in completion, like like punch cards or complete compiled job, you just submit it and it will run whenever it runs, right? But it will run to completion. Say for example, if payroll processing, right, it doesn't matter to me how IT process my payroll. Only thing I need is that on last last day of the month, I must get my salary. So whether they're because I am not waiting as a user, I am not waiting for what stage my whole computation is. It doesn't matter, right? So those kind of jobs are batch jobs, and still many systems use batch jobs. But most of us use today, whatever we use on our desktops, laptops, or even mobile phones, are of interactive type. And then there are real-time requirements where deadlines are fixed. Missile firing, for example, right? When missile is tracking some target, it's not that job can start at any point in time or complete before completion time. Now we can have a situation where we may want a deadline and before that job may finish, but the stricter version of that could be when starting time of the job and ending time has to be precise, or when job ends, that has to be at precise moment, because that final result is there at the end. Okay, so there can be various kind of requirements for real-time system. We'll look at real-time scheduling algorithms at the end. So this was a batch system that we discussed earlier. And then we have seen these are the criteria like minimize response time. Essentially is a complete response time is nothing but completion time of a job, right? So try to finish jobs early. And then throughput is how many jobs we can finish. Okay. And then turnaround time is similar to response time, but it is for batch systems. So essentially we have two main measurement criteria, response time and throughput. And third one is how fair it is. So scheduling algorithm could be such that some jobs will never get scheduled. Okay, so they may starve. Okay, we have seen the example of that in a superstore or a store where multiple queues are there, and you are almost at the towards the, you are almost like first in the queue, and there are about 10-15 people behind you, and then somebody comes that I want to buy milk alone, please let me in. So that person buys milk, second person immediately comes and then says, let me buy soap. I have just one piece of soap. And says, you may have to wait forever. I mean, if there are hundreds of such people. The policy of the store is such that anyone comes with one item will be given preference. Then you may have hundreds of items and you are important customer, yet you will not get a chance. Okay. All right. So it means that that system may not be fair to you. At the similarly, if scheduling algorithm is like shortest job first, it will not be fair to the jobs which have more compute intensive. All right. So this all we have studied in the last class. Then we have studied first as a first come first serve scheduling algorithm. Basically, the one who comes first gets CPU first, right? Okay. Now this can be done on the basis of complete time, compute time that's required, or time for the job, or it could be based on burst. How much there can be CPU burst and then IO, and then again CPU burst and so on. So based on that, we can do also a first come first serve. Okay, usually it is done such that whole job gets completed in one shot. Okay, so all right. However, although this gives kind of very efficient results, good results, because average response time will be less, because shortest job will get scheduled first, they will finish fast, and the next job which takes slightly more time will schedule, and so on. So average time to finish all jobs will be less. Okay, however, it suffers from convoy effect that we have seen. Okay, when a short process gets stuck behind a long process, right? A long process takes long to finish, so a number of short processes will continue to accumulate. Okay, and then next one we have seen was shortest remaining time first, which is a version of shortest time first but preemptive version. Okay, so if job is in execution, okay, based on remaining time, and let's assume that at this point in time, remaining time for this job is say 5 seconds. A new job comes in at this point in time, which has remaining time, or which has time completion only for 4 seconds. So at this point in time, when the job has come, and since the next job that has come in will require less time to finish, this job will be preempted. It means that we'll execute only this part, and then preempted goes off, and the next job will run on CPU, and so on, right? So this is again very efficient algorithm from the perspective of response time. Okay, so it has better average response time. Okay, and then we have seen how can we predict the, because here it totally depends on predicting how much time is going to take. Here, see, no job gets submitted where, where it is known that what is going to be next burst size. It's impossible to find this out at the time of submission, right? So there must be some prediction mechanisms, right? Like the same process we submitted earlier, how much time it has taken. That could be one way, or how many previous, when we are scheduling for a burst, next burst, then we have to predict how long the next bus would be, and this prediction is based on previous behavior, previous bus sizes. Okay, so we have seen this relationship, right? So basically it's called exponential averaging. So tau of n is equal to tau of Tn minus 1, actual how much time has been taken by previous bus, and then history. Based on that we can estimate. All right. Okay, so these were the methods that we have studied. Okay, now let's begin with interactive systems, right? Even here, shortest remaining time first is kind of non-interactive. Okay, because in interactive systems, if there are 100 processes, everyone should get some time. Okay, in some manner, right? So here, in shortest remaining time first is designed for tasks which are non-interactive type. Okay, any question up to this point?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, could you repeat the just previous part?
Which
after
one?
After the first comment algorithm.
Which one? This one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Shortest remaining time first. We discussed it last time, right? Yeah. Any question?
Yes, sir. Just revise it again. Actually, I forget.
Okay. So basically, okay, here the job that is going to be scheduled next, or that is going to run on CPU next, will depend on how much time it is going to take. Okay. So now here let's look at only bursts. How much? What will be? Let's treat burst as a criteria. How much? What is going to next burst size where the CPU is required? Treat this as a job size also, right? Considering no I/O. Okay, so burst is same as kind of job. Is a compute burst. Okay, so now a job is in execution. Okay, and then so let's assume that next job comes in. Okay, so some job comes in, new job comes in, and whose time, burst time or time to completion is less than the remaining time of the current job. Okay, then the current job will be context switched, and this job with the new job that is coming will be scheduled. Okay, so this is the method that is used. You understand? So let's start. For example, if there are in the beginning, there are jobs where burst time or remaining time to complete is, let's assume at this point in time there are many jobs. Okay, so for example, this first job, the second job, third job, and so on. Okay, so now this is in exit. So first job is in execution. Let's assume that takes 5 seconds, second takes 10 seconds, third takes 15 seconds. Okay, so now first job, let's assume job 1 is in execution. So this is in execution. Okay, and it is not completed. Let's assume that has completed only part of it. So this is, let's assume this is a part. So 3 seconds it has completed. At this point in time, in next and one more job comes in. Let's get submitted, and whose runtime is only 1 second. So what scheduler will do? It will take this job out and schedule this new job, because this has shortest time to complete. Okay, once this gets completed, then it will look at which job has shortest remaining time. So it will find out this job which has completed 3 has 2 seconds left out, will schedule this job. Okay, when this job completes, then it will schedule the job. Let's assume is J2, so it will schedule this job. Okay, the moment this J2 has completed 5 or little more than 5, then it will then okay, Okay, so it will, all right. So it will, it's okay. When J2 is scheduled, it will come because there's no other job small whose completion time is less than that. Okay, so it will complete this J2 and then J3 will be scheduled. So got it? This is called shortest remaining time first.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So this is kind of optimal, but it requires little prediction. Okay, what is going to be next burst size? And for that we have a method available, right? That we have discussed in last class. These are the method, basically background process keeps running that will estimate what is going to be next burst size. All right, so now we come to interactive systems like the mobile phones or your laptop. Okay, when you type something, for example a command, you want to see that on terminal, right? Now if that job or that process that takes your key, whatever you're typing into terminal takes a lot of time, then you may not like it, right? It has to be finished within some time. Okay, so this kind of job we call it interactive jobs. Okay, so let's look at the simplest possible interactive job, which is called round robin. Okay, so round robin job is very simple, right? So if there are multiple jobs, okay, so the scheduler will schedule the first job, say J1, it will schedule for some time period. Say let's assume 10 millisecond. When then quantum of time is over, it will switch it to next job. Okay, it will give another 10 millisecond if the job has enough computation, right? Or does not do IO in between. And then once 10 milliseconds are given to this, then CPU will be allocated to third one, and so on. And then it will, once the fourth job is completed, then it will again come to J1. All right, this is how we do often, right? In real life also. Okay, I mean, if you have 7, 8 friends have come in and your mother is cooking whatever, maybe dosa. Okay, she will give it to the first person, whoever the first person, and then before giving it second one to the first person, will prefer to give it to the next buddy, right? And the third one, then fourth one, and then again first, second, third, fourth, and so on, right? Okay, so this is exactly round robin process. Okay, so what is the advantage of round robin? Anyone can tell me?
Yes.
Sir, there will be no starvation.
Yeah, so everyone get a chance. Okay, all right, so it uses preemption. It means that it gives CPU only for to process only for some time. It is called time quantum. Okay, and this time quantum could usually is between 10 millisecond to 100 milliseconds. Now as processors are becoming faster and faster, this time quantum is also reducing. Okay, when time quantum expires, the process is preempted. It means that moves out of, or the OS or kernel saves its state in PCB and so on that we have studied earlier, or TCB, a thread control block, depending on whether it's a thread or process. Okay, so its state is saved and next process is brought in. Next process, which is the next process, which is in the round robin queue, or round robin, yeah, it's a circular queue. Okay, all right. And once it's preempted, then it gets again, it goes to end of the queue. No, basically it's a circular queue, you can think, and then you can think of as a, either way. Okay, so if just a one queue is a one ready queue, then and there are multiple processes. Okay, so then once P1, for example, P1 gets a time quantum, then this is not the head of the queue, then it moves to the end. Okay, and this becomes the head of the queue, and then process is given to processor. So this data sequence you can think of. Okay, all right. Okay, all right. So now let's assume that each process gets time quantum q. Okay, and there are total n processes. So whatever be the time, then each process will get one nth of the time quantum, because each process is getting same time quantum. Okay, each process gets is a same amount of time. So there is no unfairness here in terms of no other things is really seen, whether processes of short duration, long duration, and so on, right? Okay, so now no process waits more than n minus 1 q time units. It's simple, right? So it means that after after n minus 1 time slots are over, it will get a time slot, right? And why this is maximum? Because there could be processes which may not require full time quantum. All right. So now the question is that what is the choice of this q? Q is nothing but time quantum. How much time each processor should get? Sorry, each process should get. Okay. Now, if time quantum is very large, if you increase this to say few minutes or few hours, so this whole mechanism becomes, or it degrades to first come first serve. Okay, because this is large, very large, then process will finish it within that time, right? So basically you are waiting for process to finish. All right. And if it is very, very small, then what will happen? Then there will be very frequent context switches, right? The first process will then within say fractional millisecond will get swapped out or moved out, and the second process will come. So this process will be highly interleaved. Okay, and if it's very small, then context switch time dominates, because context switch is not free. You have to save the state, and so then this overhead becomes significant. All right. So now let's see what should be time quantum, and that's very important, right? Because a lot of performance issues, if this factor is not chosen appropriately, then it may impact the performance. Okay, so let's take simple example wherein there are 4 processes. Okay, P1, P2, P3, and P4, and P1 has burst time of 653. Let's take milliseconds. Okay, P2 has burst time of 8 millisecond. P3 has burst time of 68 millisecond. P4 is 24, and time quantum is 20. Okay, so basically now let's start. The head of the queue is of course P1. So P1 gets 20 milliseconds. Then P2 gets scheduled. It means that now P1 has moved out. Okay, and right now we are assuming the context switch time of 0 for simplicity. P2 comes in. P2 has time quantum of 8. So now P2 runs for 8 and finishes. Okay. All right. So so note that time quantum is 20, but P2 is using only 8 milliseconds out of that. So it means that now kernel will switch or give CPU to third process, right? So P3 will comes into picture, and P3 will run for complete 20 millisecond. Then is context switched, and P4 comes into play. P4 runs again for 20 millisecond. And now after this, what will happen? Which process will come in? Anyone?
P1.
P1, right? P1 has 53 milliseconds, out of which has done only 20 milliseconds, so it will be scheduled. And then when P1 completes, then what is going to be next one?
P3.
Yes, all right. So in this way, it will be executed. So what is going to be waiting time for P1? Okay, so now here waiting time, we are calculating waiting time is time when it gets the slot or it gets CPU, right? So initially it is 0, immediately because in immediately scheduled. Then next waiting time is 60, it gets scheduled here, but it is with the CPU till time t is equal to 20. So we'll have 68 minus 20. So this next waiting time, and then it gets again slot here when time was clock was 112. So we'll have to, oh, I'm sorry. That's fine. So this is the waiting time, 112 minus 88. So basically 72 millisecond is waiting time. Similarly for P2 waiting time is 20, P3 is 85. Okay, and P4 it is 88. All right. So we can say that if you average this out for these 4 processes, it comes out to be 66.25. And what is going to be completion time? Completion time would be, what is going to be completion time for P1? Completion time for P1 is 125. Okay, here. Completion time for P2 is, where is P2 ending? 28. And then 153, 112 and so on. So average waiting time is 104.5. Okay, this is very simple. Now let's change this Q and see what is the impact. Okay, now what do you think? So if we increase, if you decrease value of Q, it means that reduce the time quantum. Would average response time decrease or increase, or stays the same, or it will increase?
Sir, increase.
Okay, let's look at the example, right? Okay, let's look at the example. Let's take first example where T1 or burst time for first thread, for example, is 10 millisecond, and second one it is 1 millisecond burst. Okay, so now let's take quantum Q is equal to 10. Okay, so we'll schedule T1 first, and it will take 10 millisecond, and then it means that it will get completed fully, and then T2 is scheduled, so it will take 1 millisecond. So what is average response time here? Completion time for this and completion point for second one, which is 10 plus 11 divided by 2 is 10.5. Now let's reduce the quantum to 5. Okay, so now T1 is scheduled for 5 millisecond, and then T2 is scheduled for 1 millisecond only, because time quantum is more, but it requires less time. So this will complete in 1 millisecond. Then T1 take another 5. So average time here is, average response time is 6. Okay, plus 11. 6 is for T2, and then 11 is for T1. Okay, so it's 8.5. So there is a reduction here. We can see there is a reduction, right? So if you reduce the time quantum, here in this case, it has reduced the response time. All right. So now let's take another example where the burst size is 1. Okay, and Q is 10. Okay, so now we can see that T1 gets completed because burst size is quite, Q time quantum is quite large, and then T2 gets completed. The average response time is 1.5. And if you reduce the Q is equal to 1, even then response times remains the same. So basically what we say here, when quantum Q is reduced, the response time remains same. In the first case, when Q is reduced, and queue is reduced, then response time, what happened? Also reduced, right? Now let's take a third example where response time may also go up, right? So let's take T1 bus is equal to 1, T2 is also 1. And if quantum is 1, then average response time is 1.5. Now reduce this quantum to 0.5. Then we can see that blue job is completing in 2 milliseconds while green job is completing 1.5. So average response time turns out to be 1.75. What do you say then? Right, so we are thinking that reducing quantum or value of q may always reduce the response time is not true. It may increase. Okay, hence the value of q must be chosen appropriately. All right, so there's the thinking, right? So if it is too big, response time suffers in general. This we are talking in general, right? And then if slice is too small, then throughput suffers. The number of jobs that gets completed also are less, right? And also if the time slice is too small, then context switching time starts dominating, right? So usually context switching time is approximately 1% overhead. All right, so typical time slice today, I don't know, this today is this year or maybe just previous year, maybe just let's assume that in last 3, 4 or 5 years it has been between 10 millisecond, 100 millisecond, most of the computers. Okay, and context switching overhead is 0.1 millisecond. Okay, all right, so it means that now if you reduce a time slice and bring it to the level of say 1 millisecond and so on, then context switching overheads could be 10% or even more. All right, so but usually it is kept around 1% of the 1% overhead for the context switching. Okay, any question?
Sir, the number of processes that will be context switch in between the total number of processes that are running from the scheduler right now, that would be fixed. The n would be fixed.
Yeah, so not necessary, because interactive job, new jobs can continue to come.
Okay. And a new process will only come in the list when any old process has completed or gone forever, right?
Yeah, that depends on implementation. But what we are studying is just a method. Actually,
Okay.
no computer today I am not aware of that uses a round robin as it is. Okay, so there are a lot of variations of, because this may not really give the best possible results. Okay, if you say, I think it's a good exercise to look at what scheduling algorithm Linux uses for laptops. So you will not find it's pure round robin, it's a variation of round robins. Okay, so there are a lot of processes that keeps running in your machine which are in background for garbage collection or for for other purposes. OS keeps running a lot of processes, right, for different aspects. They are important, but they may not get very high priority, may not. Garbage collection is important activity, but may not get high priority all the time, right? But it should get sometime or other scheduler. So there are algorithms which are a more refined version of round robin. So we'll look at that a little later. Okay, so the comparison between first come and first serve and round robin. Let's take simple example. Okay, let's take 10 jobs. Each job takes 100 seconds of CPU time. However, round robin scheduler has quantum of 1 second, and we know first come first serve will finish complete job and then move on to next job. Okay, so first one is that first come first out or first come first serve. Okay, the first job is scheduled, completes. Let's assume that there is no IO happens in this job, so it completes. The next job scheduled, it completes, and so on. Then 10th job completes it. Time is equal to 1000 second. Okay, and now let's look at all these jobs are running with round robin. The first job will complete at time 991. Second will complete 992, and then 10th will complete at 1000. So we can see that overall time to finish all 10 will be the same. But what's the difference here? Average completion time or average response time in FIFO or first come first serve is smaller than that in round robin. Okay. And apart from that, lot of things we are assuming. Of course, context switching time we are assuming is 0. Okay, while round robin is going to take more context switching time. Okay, and also cache. You know, I mean, when in round robin, when jobs context switches happen, the cache also needs to be refreshed, right? Okay, so all this time also takes is kind of it will take some time. All right. So, but we cannot say that round robin is worse than FIFO or first comes first serve. Of course, give optimal performance, but we are making here all the complete job is finished. Only the next job moves in, and that's not the ideal thing, right? Because if bigger job comes, then a smaller job will queue up, and so on. All right. So let's look at another example. And now here, let's have different time quantums. Okay. So worst case, best case, let's assume these are the 4 jobs. Okay, let's see, it is, okay, I don't know whether it's same example that we have seen earlier. Okay, nevertheless. All right, let's just move on. Okay. Oh, here it is, right? Okay. So just see that there are 4 jobs, and P1, P2, P3, P4. P1 takes 53 millisecond, P2 takes 8 millisecond, P3 takes 68, and P4 gets 24. Now we know that the best first come first serve will be done if it's shortest job first, right? So if you schedule in this way, P2, then P4, then P1 and P4, it gives the best result. Okay, so now if it is a first come first serve, the average response time or average completion time will be 31 and 31.25. Okay, now let's take now here we are assuming very large time quantum such that it becomes first come first serve. Now let's take quantum q is equal to 8. Okay, then now when we are doing round robin, okay, so we don't have to, we'll schedule the job as they come in, right? So maybe here P1 will be scheduled first, then P2, then P3 and P4. Okay, so P1 get time 8 milliseconds, and then P2 and P3 and P4, right? So then response time, or sorry, the wait time, I'm sorry, first one was wait time, is 80, then 8, 85, 56, and average is 57.5. And if we change the quantum is equal to 1, then we can see that average wait time is what, 62 or something. Okay, and for this one we can see the, you know, average wait time is this one. Okay, and the worst case first come first serve is that when largest job gets scheduled first, right? So this is the scenario. So P3, then P3, then P1, then P4, then P2. So so this gives the average time as 83.25. Okay, and similarly we can see the completion time when job gets completed. Here wait time is when a job gets scheduled or you get CPU time, and the way we have calculated earlier, right? So we can see here, what can we see from these two? So for a very small quantum time or very large quantum time, okay, results may not be best, right? So we can see that okay, okay, we can see that, for example, let's look at completion time or sorry, wait time. When quantum is 8, then we are getting a good result, right? Okay, while we are, if you choose first come first serve, and this job happens to come in right order, then you will get best result. However, they come in opposite order, then you get very bad results. Okay, same thing holds for completion time. Okay, okay, here best case first come first serve, you will get good result, but worst case will be very bad. Okay, and for quantum q is equal to 1, you can see average completion time is 11 something, and quantum q is equal to 8, average time is 95, close to 95. While if we increase the quantum, then again average time increases. So in this chart, what we can see is actually we cannot say very small quantum time is good or very large quantum time is good. We cannot also say that first come first service will perform always best. Okay, the only thing we can conclude from this one is that right quantum is necessary to get good results in terms of wait time and completion time. All right, any question? Okay, all right, let's move on. So this is exactly same thing, but that we have explained. So now question is that how do we implement first come first serve? There are various methods if you want to implement, and this diagram you would have seen earlier also, right? So it works in the following way. So there is a ready queue, and this is a CPU. Okay, so let's assume that process, it will take the first process in from here. It will execute for time quantum, whatever is the time quantum. Let's assume q is equal to 10 millisecond. Okay, when time quantum is over, then so when time quantum is expired, it will again go back into the end of the ready queue. Okay, let's assume that before this time, let's assume that second process has come in, it gets a time to run, and then it has IO request in between before time quantum expires. So it will put into IO queue, and when IO is done, then again we'll put into the ready queue in the end. Okay, and so on. And suppose a child, a process forks a child process, that child process, okay, so when child process also gets scheduled here, and so on. All right, or interrupt happens, similarly wait for interrupt. When interrupt result completes, then can again go to ready queue. All right, is it clear in this one? So here child execute means child is ready for execution. It means that it's a kernel has done whatever is needed for it to get executed. All right, okay. This is one simplest possible model. All right, next is priority scheduling. So now, see, life is not as simple as, you know, having round robin. We need to give some priority. Okay, and in real life too, right? You get priority very often, right? Any example? Where you get priority treatment?
Sir, ambulance.
Yeah, ambulance, fine, fine. I mean, you are waiting for or airport, for example, right? Airport, what could be priority? So there, first thing is there's a priority queue. Okay, if I have, if I'm traveling by business class, I will get priority. You want to enter into, or even for check-in, there will be separate queue for me, or even entering the plane, there's separate queue for people who are in business class and first class. Okay, this one example, right? In stores, you will see that people who are with 1 or 2 items or less than 5 items, so there is separate queue in many stores, that less than 5 item queue. Okay, so they get priority. There are many instances, right, where one gets priority. Even airport, for example, you are in the queue and it's a first come first serve kind, and then a customer comes and says that my flight is leaving another 10 minutes, and you would have seen that person will get priority. Okay, so there are various protocols that are used, or various scheduling algorithm that are used to give priority. Similarly, in computer, say for example, you know, there are processes in kernel which are very important, which should be given priority. For example, power goes off, right? Okay, then certain things must be saved immediately into system, right? So so there must be some processes which handles all this, must be given priority. Okay, so so priority is a way of life, right? I mean, in computers there are interactive job that should be given priority. So we have seen one implicit priority earlier, which is shortest job first, which is a priority mechanism, right? Shortest job gets priority. Okay, but it is not, but explicitly also it can be done. Okay, so basically scheduling says run job according to priority. Pure round robin does not give any priority. Okay, because there is only one queue of jobs. Now in round robin, if, or in a queue of job where all jobs are there in the queue, if you have to select one which has got to have highest priority based on some criteria, it will take searching time of, if there are n jobs, it will take order n time, right? Do linear search, otherwise there's no other way. And because it's a queue. Okay, now what is the solution of this? Because every time it has to search which has the highest priority, then again one it has to search which is the next priority, and so on. Otherwise it has to sort, and when next job comes in, and then again it has to you know, kind of resort or whatever. Okay, so now we create multiple queues instead of one queue. Okay, so this, we can think of this mechanism where is a highest priority queue is here, then next priority queue is this one, and third and fourth, right? And many, it can be many, right? So now what can be algorithm? You are following a strict priority. Algorithm is that, now let's assume is a, here we are using round robin in this level, right? So where, if there is a job available at priority 3 or highest priority, then give priority to that. It means that when all these jobs are over, whatever way it's executing, let's say it's round robin way, then next level priority queue, next level jobs will be given priority. It means that now job 4 will start running once these 3 jobs have completed, right? And so on. Okay, so always execute highest priority job to completion, only then you go to the next level. And at each level we can use round robin. All right, so now what is the issue here? If this job, new jobs keep coming with highest priority, then there may be starvation to jobs which are at lower priority, right? So we have this problem. There could also be other problem which is called deadlock. Deadlock is a situation where no process gets progresses further. No process actually gets CPU. This kind of deadlock, right? So what may happen is that low priority process has hold a lock, a mutex. Okay, and that mutex is needed by high priority process. Okay, so the high priority process is not able to progress, and low priority process is holding the lock, but low priority process is holding the lock, but that lock is needed for higher priority process which is scheduled to progress further. The process will be scheduled, but it's kind of busy waiting or whatever. Okay, so this may cause deadlock that we call also as, here in this case, called priority inversion. Although process is having higher priority, but it's not able to run. Okay, any question?
Sir, few of us has a meeting at 6. And
Yeah, you can leave. What is the time slot for this class?
so 4 to 4:50, I guess.
I think you should see it again, right? I'm told it's a 4 to 6.
Yes, sir, it's 4 to 6.
Then you should schedule it. Is it official meeting?
Yes, sir.
Then I must complain to Dean about it. Which meeting is it? Can you send me details?
Okay, sir. Will send.
See, please. Next time, I want to please be careful about it. You can leave if you want. This is your choice. Okay, all right. So let's finish in next 15 minutes. Okay. So there's if you are doing strict priority scheduling, then there is a fairness issue, right? So it means that long running low priority jobs will never get CPU. So as a result of that, sometimes when it happens, there is a shutdown. In general, in most of the organization, there is a shutdown of computers at least once in a year in some way or other. Okay, because otherwise computers or servers will continue to run for years. So there is sometimes there is a plant shutdown where at that time it is found that in many servers there are jobs which are very, very old. So if server is shut down after 10 years or 11 years, you'll find that there is job which is still waiting for its turn for 10 years. Okay, because of the problem that we discussed just now, right? So now solution of this that we should give these long running jobs. It means the jobs which will run for a very long time or background. Okay, but they have very low priority, should be given fraction of CPU. Okay, so now one solution is that we can create multi-level queues. What we have done here is exactly similar thing, but now we say it, we can have different kind of jobs corresponding to priorities here. Although this is not going to solve the problem that we have seen of starvation, right? So we can have runtime processes highest priority, system processes, interactive processes, and batch processes. Okay. So one solution is that give priority to this one. When these are over, then come in here, then come here, and so on. But it's similar to the previous one. So we are not, but only thing is that these queues are based on different process types. But starvation can still happen, right? Here the batch process or interactive process will never get time if the continuous new jobs coming in for real-time processes, right? So now to overcome this, we have something called adaptive scheduling. Okay, all right. So basically it means that how can we adopt the scheduling algorithm based on threads past behavior. Okay. All right. We look at the past of thread, what a thread has done in the past, and then decide on something that, you know, how the thread will get treatment based on that, right? So this is called adaptive algorithm. Okay. So basically we have seen one such example where we have predicted the next burst, but we have seen in the context of shortest remaining time first. Okay. All right. So we can okay. So what we can do is that we can look at the processes, okay, and predict their behavior, and based on that we schedule the process. For example, okay, so if a process has consumed CPU in the past or is a CPU bound, so it will likely to remain CPU bound. Okay, similarly, the process that has an IO in the past, a lot of IO will remain IO. Now, if based on the past behavior, can we do something in the scheduling algorithm? So some algorithms are based on that. Okay. So there's one issue that we'll try to solve we will look at one such example, actually two such examples. Okay, we have multi-level feedback queue. There's one method. Second is lottery mechanism, right? So we'll see how we can take care of this starvation problem. Okay. And then like another issue is that how to give fairness, how to have fairness, right? I mean, if you are first in the queue and yet people with soap or milk or whatever takes a time slot, then you are frustrated, right? So this may not be fair. This algorithm may not be fair for jobs which will require a lot of CPU time, for example. Okay. So the one way is that can we increase the priority of jobs that don't get service? Okay, some jobs which are lower in the queue, priority of the queue, this is select the highest priority and the next priority and so on. Can we increase their priorities? If that is so, in what order we should get this priority increase, right? Okay. So all these questions are there. That's reason scheduling algorithm is a great area to do research. It has been great area. I don't know now, but then I'm sure with new processes coming in, new requirements, then a lot new algorithms are coming in. But there's a lot of optimization that's possible. All right. So this could be one mechanism. You can think of algorithms such that priority of a job which has not got chance to run increased by a certain amount. Okay. And with that certain parameters, that average response time, average wait time, etc., or turnaround time, or maybe throughput should also remain optimal. Okay. So that's all about today. Let's conclude. Interactive systems use scheduling that reduce average response time so that every job gets time. And then so they can respond to users, okay, appropriately, quickly. And round robin is one oldest and simplest method. It's also fairest and widely used algorithm. Okay, so in this round robin algorithm, choice of time quantum is very important. If time quantum is too big, then it becomes first come first served. If it's too small, then context switching time may dominate. Also, overall performance may not be optimal. If hence appropriate value of q has to be decided. Okay, then we have seen that although first come first serve is although round robin is a very fair method, but it's not suited for all, like not all scenarios, right? And there is a need to give priority, okay, to certain jobs. And that's actually it happens in real life too. Certain jobs are more important than others, has got to be given more priority. And then we have seen one simplest possible scheduling algorithm, which is multi-level queue scheduling, which is strict priority. Until highest priority jobs are over, next level jobs are not scheduled. Okay, and then we have started looking at adaptive scheduling. So in the next class, we'll look at two such algorithm, that is tomorrow. Okay, any question? No?
sir.
All right. Okay, thank you. Bye then.